It's not the footwork. It's not the mechanics. It's not chemistry. It's the hair. It's gotta be the hair. And it goes like this. Put me in the game, I'm ready. I'll lead the team sure and steady. With the hair like Jordan's. I've got the hair like Jordan's. I've got the hair like Jordan's. Skull cap so much sweat don't drip down. Hair flowing as I throw touchdowns. With the hair like Jordan's. I've got the hair like Jordan's. I've got the hair like Jordan's.
Hello, Bulls fans. Welcome to Last Bull In. Great time to be a Buffalo Bulls football fan coming off a great shutout victory in Western Michigan. And we have UMASS coming up this week at home. Coming up in this week's Last Bull In, we're going to recap the Western Michigan University win. We're going to go around the MAC to see how the MAC is shaping up. We're going to have a UMASS guest blogger for a question and answer series. We're going to do a Bulls versus the UMass matchup. We're going to do our Bruwpeg predictions. And last but not least, what you've all been waiting for, is our individual shout-outs. So let's recap the numbers of a great victory, a great shutout victory at Western Michigan.
UB goes on the road to Western Michigan. First time UB has won at a Western MAC team, and first time they shut out a team with an FBS since 1965. It was tense, so it was 6-0 going into halftime with a Devin Campbell touchdown run out of the Bullcat. But again, the defense was great in the first half, excellent in the second half, and the offense got rolling. Patrick Clark kicked a 51-yard field goal to make it 9-0. A gorgeous pass to Mason Schreck in the corner of the end zone from Joe Licata puts up 16-0. Fred Lee with a gorgeous tipsy two dance along the side of the end zone right in the corner. Beautiful back corner throw. Great presence of mind from Fred Lee to stay in bounds to score 23-0. Newt's slow day, but caught a beautiful bullet. Bobble, came, but it was a great catch. Make it 30-0. Now Alex Newt's has caught a TD pass in every game this season. A great achievement. And then Patrick Clark again to ice it. A 36-yard field goal. That's how the score ended up being 33-0. The team statistics for the game this week was UB had 24 first downs compared to Western Michigan's 17. UB did 19 rushing and 5 passing. If you look at the net yards rushing, UB had 290 as compared to Western Michigan's 38. Again, an unbelievable Buffalo defensive game. The other thing was net passing. Joe Licata, 132 yards as compared to 164. But listen, Western Michigan was just saying, please, run the ball at us. Let's see what you've got. And we did a great job. The one thing that I do love is that UB, again, is holding on to the ball. Joe Licata with 0 interceptions. Right now, UB is second in the NCAA with a plus 10 turnover margin, which is incredible, and that's how you win games. The only thing that did kind of pop up, and it's the second week in a row that we've seen that, is you're seeing UB take some bad penalties, and some penalties are just completely undisciplined. So UB had 9 penalties for 110 yards. Let's take a look at the individual offensive statistics for the game. The rushing leader was Bo Oliver. Amazing job. Net 128 yards, but also hats off to James Potts, who came in and great burst of speed. Net 91 yards, which was better than all of Western Michigan. The passing leader was Joe Licata, had 124 yards, 11 on 21. Again, 0 interceptions, just sacked one time. Where you look at Zach, had a tough game, 16-34, 164 yards, but threw 2 interceptions. Now, one was a deflection that really, I'm not going to put that on Zach, but again, Zach was sacked 5 times. The amazing thing is that over the last 10 games, UB has 36 sacks. The receiving leaders this week are Fred Lee. Fred Lee did an amazing job stepping up. really coming into his own. If you're going to overshadow Newts, if you're going to put safety coverage over top of him, watch out for Fred Lee. I only see Fred Lee getting better and better as the season goes on. Taking a look at the defensive statistics for Buffalo, the first thing we'd like to say is way to go, Colby Way. Sorry, terrible pun there. Colby Way was named MAC East Defensive Player of the Week. There was a drive. It looks like Western Michigan was either going to get a field goal or maybe even score. 2 sacks on that drive. Blanked Western Michigan, took them out of any sort of chance of scoring. So congratulations, Colby Way. Khalil Mack, an absolute stud. Triple teamed, even though double team chipped in all the time. When Mack was held up by 2 players, still slid underneath. A great sack with a forced fumble. But Courtney Lester was the #1 tackle machine. We definitely miss you, Blake Bean. Get healthy. Hopefully we see you real soon. But great job defense, blaking Western Michigan and shutting them out. Hey everybody, welcome to Last Bull In. This is the UMASS edition. We are halfway through the season, and UB comes off of a great 33-0 victory. On track, things are rolling. As you can see, we brought some eye candy. We invited Matt, aka BC Bull, if you read it. So Matt is going to be joining us now. Last Bull In. Matt's going to start being a contributor on UB Bull Run. So Matt, welcome to the call.
Thank you very much.
Shifting gears, everybody. So that's what we got. UMass. Let's recap a great 33-0 victory over the Row. Probably one of the I don't know even word to describe Fleck. I mean that guy is just a train wreck upon train wrecks. So. When we show the video again, because you guys will like this so much, you're going to watch it again. I'll show you all the stats, the leading rushers, passers. I'll break down all of the scoring drive. But I'm going to start with Tim. Tim, tell me, what did you see? What did UB do well that won that game, Tim?
It's the same thing they've been doing since the Stony Brook game, which is the defensive scheme. I think has looked different than it did in the first 2 weeks of the season. We are playing much more aggressively up front. We are playing much tighter on the corners, and we're giving deep cover with the safeties. And that's opening up some opportunities in the middle of the field. When we get further in the season and play some better quarterbacks, we'll see how that plays out. But for the time being, with the competition we're playing, it's the perfect formula because we are not playing quarterbacks that are going to be able to get the ball into really tight windows while they're getting chased down by Khalil Mack on one side and Colby Way on the other. The other thing, I really like seeing Potts look good during meaningful minutes of the game. We definitely need the change of pace this year, and he needs to be in the mix for next year. So the more carries and the deeper we get, the better it is. Somebody pointed that out in UB fan, that we are giving a lot of reps to second and third guys in games now that they weren't getting them the past couple of years. So this could in some ways be a springboard year for that reason.
Good. And it is interesting when you see Potts. He definitely comes in as a different runner. You definitely see more of a burst. He's a different runner than Oliver. You're right. It's been a long time. A lot of us has been waiting for Potts to do something, so it's nice to see that happen. Conrad, tell me, what did you see about the game? What would you like to talk about?
I actually watched the game not live on Sunday, and very disappointed with the first half defensive effort. Looking at it, it looked like we reverted back to what we were doing when against Stony Brook when we weren't being successful. I think when we played Stony Brook, we had a lot of guys open for intermediate routes, and they were able to pick apart our defense slowly but surely. The only difference between the Stony Brook game and the WMU game was Stony Brook really emphasized the run game, so they could also run the play-action pass really effectively. WMU really had nothing else. But we were saved by a lot of drops and some undisciplined play by WMU. In the second half, we came out as a different team, and we saw the second half adjustment that we really haven't seen since UMass last year, where the game really turned. And I think the defense sparked that. Mack made one ridiculous play when he was double teamed. The play that you guys all know, he read the offensive line and the running back was chipping. They kind of anticipated Mack going on his outside rush. He saw that they were a step ahead of him. He just stopped, and he had a lane right to the quarterback. Great play. Something that you want to see from Mack too, reading it and recognizing the play while still going 100 miles per hour. That was great. Otherwise, the rest of the defense played well. I called a Brim interception. It was a Baker interception, close enough. It won't give me any points on the Bruwpeg because close isn't close enough in Bruwpeg. I was close again this week. But yeah, I mean, I think the defense really stepped up and saved us really that game because in the second half, in the first half, WU got near the red zone 3 times. They could have scored 3 touchdowns. It would have been 21-9. That would have been disastrous. I think, we got 2 sacks on the final drive of the first half, but before that we had no sacks in the first half. We got to keep that pressure going. That is from last year what we thought would be the key to our defense. Get the pressure on, don't give the quarterback the time to make good throws, and then let our defense be opportunistic when there's a mistake. And we saw that in the second half. 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions. We still have ridiculous turnover numbers, and we need to keep that going against UMass. Please, I hope that we don't ever sit back and play soft this year.
Good point. You're saying ridiculous turnovers. UB is second in the NCAA right now with a plus 10 turnover margin. So it reminds me a lot of the 08 team. The 08 team was they did a good job of stripping the ball and taking the ball away. And Matt, tell me, what did you see, Matt, and what did you enjoy about the game?
Yeah, well, aside from the defensive adjustments in the second half, the thing that I was most pleased with out of WMU was actually, and this is a rare thing to come out of my mouth, but I think Quinn did a great job with the offensive play calling. I think sticking to the scheme in the second half, even when it was only a 6-point lead, was a really smart decision. I think what we've seen since Stony Brook has been this team really learned that just they're better than the teams that are lining up across them and how to beat them. And I think I was certainly frustrated being only up 6 at halftime, but they came out in the third quarter was where that whole game turned. They dominated the third quarter. And even against UConn and EMU, we scored 28 points in the first half against both of them. But the third quarter was really where it was just apparent that we were stronger in the trenches, that we're going to run the ball down the throat, that we're going to just take over this game, we're going to shorten the game up, just let the clock tick. And I think having the faith to do that, even only up 6, I think in earlier Quinn years, even before Quinn was Zach Maynard, that situation turns into forcing a pass, and you got to pick 6. Now it's a whole new game. But realizing that we've got the lead, we can run it down your throat, and just taking that patience until the third quarter where that physical advantage kind of starts to show. I was really pleased with that. I think having patience and trust in the offensive game plan really helps the team learn and keep going and learn how to win.
Yeah, it's nice to see. That's where I always feared going into halftime. You just knew that we do the same exact thing in this first quarter. We never saw the changes. We're starting to see that. So maybe it's just Quinn maturing as a coach as well. So it was a fun game. I tell you what, again, we were all nervous. Sitting to go 6-0 at halftime. That was a nervous time, but I tell you what, a fun second half. So looking around the MAC now, so UB's in an interesting position. They're sitting at 2-0 in the MAC. There's one team ahead of them, that's Bowling Green, and that's 3-0. So if UB goes on a hot streak, that'll be a very interesting game in the Ralph. You've got Ohio, UMass, and Kent. They're sitting at 1 win in the MAC East, MAC game. You got Miami and Akron, who are out of it already, and the MAC just started. Good for those 2 teams. So, Conrad, let's start with you. Pick a team in the MAC. Tell us about what you saw and what's going on with those teams.
Well, I actually had a whole Saturday of no football, so I was working. I didn't see any MAC game. The one that I saw highlights of and was most surprised was, well, not surprised, but of course Ohio losing to CMU. It happens every year. Ohio can't focus through an entire October. So that's another one of those games where I wonder, did Ohio get it out of their system, and are we going to see a much more motivated team come into Buffalo in November? Or is this the start of the free fall for Ohio, which happens some years? I'm hoping, of course, for the free fall, so that when they come in November, we get a quick win on some midweek action. Good.
Matt, what game did you take a look at this week?
Yeah, I'm thinking about Kent State here, and I didn't actually watch their game this week, but everyone's talking about, Kent State's been getting tossed around, like Dree Archer's been hurt, he's got a bum ankle, even when he's come back, he hasn't been at full speed. But something that we got to notice is that Kent State has already played Northern Illinois, Ball State, and Bowling Green. They're done with the hard part of their MAC schedule, and so even though they're kind of down the table a little bit, they still could string together some wins. On top of that, they play us. They're playing South Alabama this week, which it's South Alabama, and before they come into Buffalo and we go there, so they could be coming into our game with some momentum. And I think that game just comes down, is Dree Archer he's probably gonna sit. They probably don't need him to beat South Alabama, but they've played the tough part of their MAC schedule. And, Durham is a pretty good runner, too. They've got kind of the Starks and Thermalist thing going on there. And I think, Kent State can run the ball even without Dree. And their quarterback's got 10 touchdowns to 4 interceptions this year. They're not a great team, but I could see them getting some momentum, hitting the easier part of their schedule and hitting their stride. So I think that's a chance to really be the linchpin of the rest of the second half of the year for UB.
That's a team that I think people haven't been really focusing on a lot in the MAC, that team. Hey, Tim, did you want to kind of talk more about that game as well?
I have something of a Kent addiction, because for me, that game has been circled on my calendar since the preseason as kind of the one that's going to tell us who UB is. I expected us to win these games against Western and UMass and EMU, but I did expect us to be blowing them out. So the question after UMass, that we still can't look past them, but after UMass, Kent's going to kind of help prove, are we a team that's going to win 7, 8, maybe 9 games and compete for the MAC East, or are we going to be one of those teams that's 6-6 come the end of the season and just praying that we fall into an at-large spot? So I can't wrap my mind around Kent, because Archer, from what I've seen, isn't looking hurt as such, but he's not getting a lot of touches. So I don't know if that's injury or just kind of what Matt alluded to, that their coach isn't quite confident yet enough in his health. They have played Ball State they didn't just play these teams, Matt. They played these teams tough. I mean, they by all rights should have beaten Ball State. They were ahead of Northern Illinois in the third quarter. They looked pretty bad against Bowling. Actually, I think against Bowling Green, the first half they looked pretty decent, and that was when Archer was out of the season.
Yeah, they were only down by 1 possession in the second half, I think, against Bowling Green at one point.
And their quarterback, Colin Reardon, is no relation, by the way. Colin Reardon is he's a freshman. He's fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to watch him play, he throws the ball really well. He's very accurate. He's pretty good decision maker for a freshman. He's got 10 touchdowns against 4 interceptions. He's completing 60% of his passes, and he's done this without Archer in the offense. So this, Kent can roll. Kent right now, I think they're sitting at 5 losses.
Yeah.
2 and 5.
Again, they've played a killer schedule to this point. They're going to be a very motivated team from this point on, because they can't lose 2 more games this year. So that's not a good position to be in. Whether or not your schedule's been strong or weak, you don't want to be in the middle of the season saying we have to go 4-2 from here on out just to qualify for a bowl.
Yeah, I would say, I'm going to add in, even though we heard that they're going to South Alabama, I do think that is going to be a little tougher test than you thought. Mid-major rankings on UB Bull Run, we have Tulane at the number 8 team. They're 5-2. One of their losses is to South Alabama. So even though South Alabama is a new team to the FBS, they're actually a pretty good team for being one of those new. They're not Georgia State. So, and going down to Mobile, I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk for Kent State. And I think the travel is going to hurt them. They're going to have to come right all the way back up into Buffalo. It's 1 week. Oh yeah. So they have to come back up to. They have to come back to Kent, but I mean we're going to be sitting at home and then making the 3-hour bus drive. They're going to have to go all the way down to the Gulf Coast, all the way back. We saw what that long trip did to us against Stony Brook. It's going to be rough for them making that trip back for the second time this year. They already went down to LSU. So I don't know who set up their schedule this year, but they're crazy, and hopefully they made a lot of money off of it because they had a rough schedule.
It's going to be very interesting after this UMass game, is when you've got Kent, Ohio, Toledo. As Tim alluded to, I think those 3 games are going to tell more about this team than what we've seen. And after this UMass game, which I think we're all going to kind of agree this should be a victory, the last 5 games are going to be very interesting. So let's shift gears. Let's talk about our last cupcake of the year, UMass. Sorry, UMass fans, but it is what it is with extra frosting. And actually, as we was talking here, we got James Kelly who just popped in. So, hey, Jimmy, Are you ready to get going, brother?
I feel like I should be. I'm just getting my microphone set up here.
Good. You sound good. Okay, well, we're going to shift gears again because we got Jimmy in here, so we don't want to keep Jimmy listening to UB football all night. We know that he's dying to, but we're going to kick him off. That's part of the deal here. But Jimmy, welcome. So Jimmy is believe it or not, he's a fan of UMass football. Good for you, Jimmy. We'll do a DNA test later, but welcome. Thanks again. Thanks for carving time. Thanks for being on late tonight, and thanks about talking about this game. So what I'd like to do is, Tim, why don't you start firing? Tim is going to ask Jimmy some questions about the UMass game. Tim, why don't you go ahead first?
So, you guys got to be feeling good. You got your first win last week. But one thing that's kind of flown under the radar is the defense of UMass has been a lot better than the record would indicate. I think maybe Wisconsin lit you up in week 1 and Kansas State lit you up. But other than that, you've been respectable defensively. What's kind of the key to how your defense has held, other FBS teams down under 28 points?
All right, well, it started with a scheme change from going from a 3-4 defense to a 4-3 front, which focuses on using our strength, which is our defensive line. They're all experienced, they're all big, they're all fast, they're all strong. And when we were running a 3-4 out there, they were getting double-teamed. Offensive line, were getting to the second level a lot. We were getting gashed in the run game. And if you go back and watch those Wisconsin highlights, you'll see that, Melvin Gordon really lit us up for that one really long run. But since we made the change back to a 4-3, we've been able to hold teams in check, which has been good, except the offense hasn't been able to catch up. So last week we kind of got a good effort out of the defense, and mainly Stanley Andre, a middle linebacker, at 14 tackles. We had a safety, Kari Bailey-Smith, come in for an ejected player, Antoine Tharp, and make 10 tackles. Devin Brown's another safety. He made 7 tackles. So guys were coming out making plays, and the offense made enough plays to come out with the win. That's pretty much the story of that game. Is just the offense did just enough to win by 7 against a pretty bad Miami team.
Well, a win's a win. Glad you got your first one of the season. Conrad, what question for UMass football, Conrad?
This is the second year UMass, at the beginning of the year, is picked to be the worst team in the conference. Last year they went and beat Akron. This year they've already beaten Miami. What is the factor that keeps UMass from being that worst team in the conference? Is it the coaching? Is it just better athletes than we think, or is it something else?
I think what's really set UMass apart this year is we've had 5 offensive linemen playing 5 offensive line positions every single game this year. So instead of having kind of a rotating cast of characters like we had last year, thanks to injuries and just having to mix and match a lot, you had some inconsistency. And this year we've had 5 guys play every single game, and it's made a world of difference, especially with what we've had out of the production we've gotten out of running backs, like Jamal Wilson the last 2 games has been great. Stacey Bedell, I thought, was our best player through the first handful of games before he got hurt. So I think it's been the consistency and the continuity that we've had in those positions on the offensive and defensive fronts. Like I was talking about earlier, big, fast, strong guys playing big, fast, strong positions. And that's really, I think, been the biggest difference between us and, a Miami team that, might just crumble under the pressure. We've had 5 guys playing every position on the offensive line, paving the way, letting A.J. Doyle or Mike Wegson or, you put me back there at this stage, and it wouldn't make that big of a difference. But as long as those 5 guys are in front of me, it's going to work out. And that's been the biggest difference this year.
I'd like to see you run the ball. That'd be kind of funny. I'd love to see you get hit, but that's another show.
I'm kind of like Tony Romo, so.
There's so many jokes there, but we don't have a ton of time. Hey, Matt, question.
Sure. Jimmy, I'm wondering a little bit more specific, and I'm glad you talked about your offensive line. Obviously, Rob Blanchflower is like UMass's go-to guy. In the Q&A, you were talking about him as a potential third-day draft pick. I'm wondering, I know that you've probably heard more than you want to hear about Khalil Mack, but he's not the only guy in our front 7. I'm wondering how UMass is going to get Blanchflower open and get him his yards while also protecting the quarterbacks and giving him enough time to get the ball to Blanchflower.
Well, with his size, you would think that he does a little bit more blocking than he actually does. But he lines up kind of like a Jimmy Graham and in the slot a lot. And as much as they will keep him on the line, he plays a lot in the slot. And he plays a lot in they like to run that 11 personnel with the tight end and the running back and a bunch of wide receivers, and he'll line up in the slot. They move him around the formation a lot, so it's kind of hard to identify where he is, even though he's so big, you can kind of lose him. So I think they're going to move him around a lot. They're going to split him. They're going to put him in the backfield as kind of an H-back, up-back type position. They're just going to keep him moving around, and if he doesn't know where he's going to be the next play, neither is Buffalo. So as long as they can kind of figure out a way to keep him from getting bogged down by those linebackers, then he should have a decent day. And they're going to throw him the ball 10, 15 times anyway, so whether he's covered or not.
Good. He's a hell of a player, and that's the one thing where you can throw the ball on this team. You can pick up some yards. So, Tim, your second and last question.
UMass is going through what 95% of teams transitioning up go through. I know, you have a big chunk of the fan base that thinks, oh, we'll be great in the MAC right away. And then you have the fans who are more level-headed and say it'll be a while. There's obviously been a lot of signs of improvement here, but you got to ask, how safe is your coach for how long? How many more seasons can you have of 1 and 2 and 3 wins before UMass, who is putting a particularly large investment in facilities lately, how long are they going to go with this kind of a coach?
The biggest issue with Charlie is that he's a career assistant. This is his first head coaching job, and when you have a guy like that, it can be kind of difficult for him to adjust to making big time decisions, like when to go for it, when to kick, when to do certain things that you'd like to see an experienced guy make the right call, and Charlie just doesn't make the right call sometimes. And you tried Blake Lucas out there for a 54-yard field goal the other day, and he hadn't made a kick yet on the season. So you got to kind of weigh the options of what you're doing. Sure, he kicks well before games, but he hasn't made one in the game. So for Charlie, the biggest thing is getting wins on the board, because you can't argue with wins. Even if he's making poor decisions, if they're winning games, he's going to keep his job. So as the season kind of winds down, he's probably got to beat Western Michigan. He's probably got to beat Akron to keep the seat at least a little cool headed into next year. And then next year, we're looking at 3-4 wins minimum, and then we'll talk about the rest of his contract. But right now, he's being paid the least amount of money in college football, and UMass has to like that because it helps the bottom line. So as long as they're staying a little bit competitive, they're getting a little bit better each year, eventually we'll upgrade to to a coach who knows what he's doing and can really get in there and turn this program into what we have with our hockey program and our lacrosse program and our basketball program.
Jimmy, UB has no experience with a guy who's a lifelong assistant coach who struggles to make game-time decisions. We have no idea what you're talking about. Conrad, your second and last question for Jimmy.
Yeah, so as far as the conference goes, UMass and Buffalo are the furthest east. It's a bit of a stage rivalry. I don't believe the game has that much feeling in Buffalo yet. How does the UMass-Buffalo rivalry stand in Amherst, Massachusetts?
Well, the biggest thing for us down here is last year we played you guys right after we beat Akron, so you guys stopped our winning streak. And right now you're in the position to once again keep us from getting a winning streak. So that's kind of where the rivalry stands, and we want to make sure we can kind of get over the hump and maybe win 2 games in a row. Will it happen? I'm not so inclined to believe that they're going to win this weekend, but I think a competitive showing against a team that's, one of the better mid-major programs in the country is definitely a step in the right direction. And as long as we put up more than 7 points, I think we'll be happy with what happens on Saturday, as long as it's nobody gets hurt and everybody gets home back on the bus.
Did you say better mid-major program for UB in the same sentence? We appreciate that, Jimmy. You're our favorite now. Thank you very much.
You want to be a regular?
Yeah, you're invited back every week if you want. Or
you don't even have to do the row the boat dance.
Yeah, you don't have to roll the boat like Western Michigan, or take your shirt off. Yeah. Hey, Matt, what you got for him?
Yeah, last question is kind of a bigger picture thing for UMass. I'm a BC alum, as you might know, and so UMass being a large public school in Massachusetts kind of has the same thing as we do at Buffalo with Syracuse. And there's been some talk on the forums on UB Fan the last couple of years about if UB wants to be a big-time school, if they want to show they have big-time athletics, maybe they should investigate playing at Ralph Wilson at the Bills Stadium. And this year with our new athletic director, we've got this New York Bowls initiative, and you can debate how it's being implemented and what it's good and where it could be improved. And I know UMass is moving from playing all their games at Gillette to half and half next year, and I'm wondering kind of what the feel is. I know it's got to be tough for students to get to Gillette, but do you think that's helped access the alumni base in Eastern Mass? Do you think that's been a good decision? Would you rewrite kind of how you do that, or how do you feel about that?
Well, the move to Gillette was really the only way that we were going to get a Division I FBS program because we just didn't have the infrastructure in Western Massachusetts. So it was either go to Gillette for 6 days a year or stay down in FCS and play 1 day a year there with Maine or UNH or whatever. So it kind of came down to it's a mutually beneficial deal because Robert Kraft gets, half a pretty good, I don't know, I'm not going to throw numbers out, but a lot of the gate, most of the concessions, and it's a good situation for him because people are coming in, they're shopping in Patriot Place, which if you haven't been there, is just a zoo of just crazy stores and stuff. So it's bringing a lot of money in for Robert Kraft, and it's allowing UMass to make this transition. So it's been good in that sense that it's the only way we were going to make it happen, but it's been mostly for the alumni, mostly for the non-students, and it's been really tough on the students to try to make a 3 p.m. date in Eastern Mass and then get appropriately prepared to be a college student at a football game and then still get home safe. So it's kind of hurt the college football atmosphere. Like there was no discernible student section there on Saturday, and there were still 20,000 people there because of band day. So it's kind of it's a mixed bag, but next year getting 17, 18,000 people on campus for a midweek game on ESPN or something, I think is what the plan is against some MAC teams. So I think that'll definitely help out with getting the school totally behind what's going on up in Amherst and really get people to be like, when I support this team, I'm going to drive out to Foxborough, 1 day a year, even if it's going to be a zoo, but whatever. Whatever it has to happen to make this team catch up to the rest of the athletics at the school and in the MAC.
Well, the good thing about Massachusetts and the Boston area, there's no traffic, so that's good.
Oh, yeah.
So getting in and out of that stadium is really easy. It's the only stadium I know where you can pay to have it at your own expressway, so that's pretty cool. Jimmy, thanks a lot. Now, Jimmy, we kind of talked. You had a question for us, so Jimmy, fire away, and guys, whoever thinks got the best answer, chip in.
Yeah. So being a one-team MAC member, we kind of can feel a little bit excluded, and so especially for me over at Hustle Belt, with all the directional teams making their jokes and a lot of the Midwest rivalries that are ingrained just because of geography. You guys have been in the MAC for a couple of years now. You kind of know what the deal is. How does the MAC see UMass, and how do they feel about having this partial member siphoning off some of their bowl money?
Let me do this. I'll do the positive, and then I already see Conrad starting to sweat on this one. So I'll take the positive one. Obviously, UB's the new guy too before you guys, and really there is no rivalry from UB. I don't think any true rival yet. Buffalo was starting to build one with Temple. Temple left. Bye-bye. Thank you. And so it'd be kind of nice too, because everything, we always had West for everything, which you're gonna. I mean, obviously now you have to go West too. I think there could be a nice chemistry and a good rivalry between Amherst and Amherst. I like it. Would love to see you guys play more basketball games and stuff like that. But overall, I think it could be our big rivalry of the year. That's my positive. And let me switch this over to either Tim, Conrad, or Matt. And I don't think they're going to have as sweet as an answer as I did.
I don't have a negative, but since your question is about the perception, in fandom, outside of the athletic directors and everything, in fandom, no one's really thrilled with the partial member. We were all happy UMass came in because it got us to 14. It also got us a sweet check from Temple when they left. Let's not forget that as a positive. I'm happy to have UMass in, being from Buffalo and now living further in the Midwest. I can say Buffalo is a lot more culturally like Amherst, Massachusetts than it is, Toledo, Ohio. And that's just been my experience. So more people there, that's great, especially like David said, everyone in the MAC is already paired off. There's already all the rivalries in the MAC built in. Buffalo doesn't have one. We haven't fit with one yet. So as a Buffalo fan, I'm happy to have UMass in. I don't think the itty bitty bit of money we lose on bowls is that terrible compared to the overall percent of our athletic department budgets.
Yeah. I think when Temple was here, they came in from day one that feeling like they were the best team in the league and they were the worst. So that made them fast rivals. They had egos the size of the Empire State Building, and they never won anything. So that was great. UMass has been nicer and a lot of fun, and so it might be a more friendly rivalry and not as bitter as the one we had with Temple. I think it would have been great if we had Temple, UMass, and Buffalo as the three Eastern schools in a 7-team division. But with just us two Eastern schools, especially us both being at the bottom of the MAC last year and presumably this year, it doesn't really help our perception in the conference. They're, like you said, they're paired off. The Michigans, the Ohio schools are paired off. They're competing in the big games, and I think they'd rather not have us in their conference. So, and we'd probably rather not be in their conference either. So it's never going to be. I don't think it's ever going to be a perfect marriage between the East and the Midwest.
Matt?
I would just say, I look at the, crack jobs on CSN BBS with all their realignment stuff, and they all feel that, we got to UMass just to get in or get out and pick one or the other. And I got to say, Temple had a nice deal with the MAC where they would play a couple basketball games rotating every year. I'd love to see that again with UMass. I don't know off the top of my head if it exists or not. And I'd love to see maybe
played 4 games. We got 4 games with MAC teams this year.
They have the same deal Temple had.
Great. Okay, cool. Then, the guys that, on the general MAC board there are a little bit all over the place with we need to have, Southern Illinois join in this and kick UMass out and stuff. But I'm pretty happy. I'd love to see, in addition to basketball, like the teams that have lacrosse, or the schools that have lacrosse, the schools that have, the ice hockey, they probably end up making that fit anyway. Now that with realignment, there's more room for non-conference. But I think without leaving the A10, which is a great conference in its own right, there's room to kind of do more with the other sports like they do in basketball. And I don't think that UMass is like slacking off or anything. I think the arrangement is fine. I look at the perception of what other people are talking in that Ohio and Michigan block, and I think they'd love to see more, integration just with the MAC, even though I think the A10 is a pretty good place to be too. So.
And to find a negative off of Matt's point, I'll jump off of Matt's very rosy positive. I'll just throw one negative out there. The general perception that even I carry is that UMass basketball games versus the MAC are not worth nearly as much as Temple basketball games were, either in terms of the RPI boost they provide or in terms of general interest. I know UMass has a great basketball history, but you guys went dancing last when I danced at my high school prom. So, I mean, that's I'm not just. I said this is not meant as smack, but you guys have been in a multi-bid conference, 3, 4 teams sometimes, and you haven't been to the dance. So I'm happy with the basketball games. I'm happy with UMass. I think that I don't consider the basketball payment worth much. Just my perception.
Good. Jimmy, did we answer your question, Jimmy?
Yeah, I definitely have a sense of what's going on in MAC land as far as what's up with UMass.
Good. I think there's going to be a great rivalry. Hey, Jimmy did call this game in favor of the Buffalo Bulls 34, his own team 17. Hey, Jimmy, we're Bulls fans. We've been there, done that. We went 1 win to 2 to 3 to 4. We've been there. Be patient. This is our year. So, hey, thanks, Jimmy. We appreciate you staying on. I still want to make fun of the EMU guy who fell asleep and wasn't on. So you're cooler than EMU. So, Jimmy, thanks a lot. Enjoy the game. You're not going to enjoy it too much. And we'll see you next year, okay, man? Welcome to MAC. So let's do this. I'm going to start off with Matt. Matt, talk about where is UB going to succeed? Where is UB going to be able to find success? And is there any issues where you see UB could also have some issues with UMass?
Yeah, I think it comes down for both teams, for both UB's success and trouble, and for where UB's going to find success and where I just said that, is in the defensive secondary. I don't think I've seen like as frustrating a group of players with the flags and the penalties since Brett Hamlin. The refs in the Western Michigan game where I wasn't quite sure if I agreed with everything, but it seems like they're getting flagged all over the place. There was an entire Western Michigan drive sustained on on defensive pass interference penalties. They had 4 first downs because of penalties that game. The Stony Brook game should have been salted away if we could, defend a pass cleanly. I think that's a possible, pitfall for UB. Jimmy said in the Q&A, if the defense can hold us in it, can keep the momentum up and be close at halftime, maybe, Charlie Molnar just goes nuts and they have all the energy in the world. And, I'm hoping that the defensive backfield, just stiffens up and doesn't really do anything boneheaded or, keeps the yellow off the field. And in the same direction, I think UMass, Molnar's got, the same coaching background. I believe he's an offensive line guy like Quinn was. And I think UB with Shrek and the big guys, and obviously Newts, nobody can cover Newts on UMass's team. Taking advantage of those holes like they have against all the other teams this year, short of Stony Brook, is the way to go. I think it's all about the defensive backfields for both teams.
Interesting. And UMass lost their starting running back, but they found a guy who's a lot like Brandon Oliver, so they do have a 1-2 punch. Hey, Conrad, tell me, what do you see about this game? What's UB's success, and where could UB get hurt?
I think I agree with what Tim is probably going to say on defense. So I'm just going to go on offense, which I'm hoping that, as Matt said about the WMU game, that Quinn doesn't stray from the game plan. We saw it last year. UMass played us maybe tougher than any other team in that first half, and we only had a fullback as running back, and we just ran it 2-3 yards a carry every time. And eventually their defense cracked. It's primarily an FCS defense, and they can't sustain to the pressure of 4 quarters of FBS offense. Last week they should have lost. Miami gave them the game with turnovers. So we can't turn the ball over. I don't think we need to really get too pass happy, and we haven't in the last few weeks. We've been content with running the ball with our 3 or 4 running options, and just beating the team down. So I see on offense to keep the game being very much like the WMU game. If the weather is particularly good, I don't know, Newts could have a monster day, but I think the key to this game is just grounding it out on the ground.
Good point. And listen, Brandon Oliver is rolling again. I think, listen, beat them up front, and then when they get soft, we throw the ball. But Conrad's been the one calling it. Conrad's saying, hey, Newts is touchdown per game guy. And that streak where I didn't think it was going to continue, it did. So, Conrad, good call on that. Tim, give us your insight into this game this weekend.
On the defensive side of the ball, I don't think we need to worry too much about the defensive backs. And I thought the refs of the Western Michigan game were high. I got to put it out there. I mean, I'm not, it's one of those things, there's holding on every play. There is. You can always throw a flag. And for some reason, they wanted to drag that game out flags. And it was both teams. Let's not forget, UMass, as much as WMU had drives that were sustained by penalties, they had drives end with multiple holdings in a row. So that was just a case of MAC refs smacking it up. But I think defensively, as long as we play the game we played in the second half against WMU, and as that we've basically played since Baylor, we'll be okay. I mean, they may get 10, 13 points here, there, 17. I mean, they may slip one by, but I don't see them being able to sustain offensive energy against our defense if we're playing our game. On the other side of the ball, I think the worst thing in the world we could do is try to pass on UMass. Everyone in the world is beating UMass by running the ball, and they're doing that for a reason, because it's easy to run the ball on UMass. It's not, phenomenally easy, but they're not a good team defending the run. Everyone's running when they can run. They need to look out for Justin Anderson. Is that it? He's one of their defensive linemen who's a transfer from Maryland. The past couple weeks, he's had 2 sacks each game. He's had, 5, 6, 7 tackles each game. He is a big thing that has sparked them as they hit MAC play into holding these teams tough in the first half. But like I said, with UMass, what you still see this season, you saw it last season, is they tire out because they're thin. Like Hunter said, it's basically an FCS defense in the trenches. A healthy dose of Oliver and change-up running backs, and with some precision passing. By the second half, they should be tuckered out, and we should be able to run on them. like really just run up some points. But stay the course, do what you got to do. Don't get crazy unless there's a real reason to do it.
Good. I totally agree. And Tim, that's where I thought where UB played very smart last week was Western Michigan, excuse me, gentlemen, does have a great secondary, and you saw that where they really kind of neutralized Newts by the terrible pun on words there. But you saw Oliver, Potts. I mean, everyone was running well. Again, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the Bruwpeg, something near and dear to my heart. Also, the second part, I like to throw these guys curveballs to make them think. So I want your prediction. I want to know exactly how it scored. And then last but not least, I want a yes or no answer whether Oliver gets 154 yards and becomes the UB all-time leading rusher. So, new guy, Matt, let's see what you got, brother.
All right. Well, I bucked I usually put in my Bruwpeg at Thursday or so, but this week I found a GIF I wanted to include, so I got on the horse early. And I said Buffalo 34-10. Pretty much in line with things before. I don't think UMass will score 10, but I'm hedging my bets for Bruwpeg points. For the sake of getting to 10, I think we're going to continue our run right now of scoring early. Against Western Michigan, we scored on our first drive. Against Baylor, we scored on our first drive. And like I said earlier, we jumped out at 28 first-half points against both UConn and EMU. I think we're going to score on the first drive. I think that'll be a pass to Newts. I know, Tim, that you like the run. I think it's going to be a pass to Newts. I think Shrek's hands are going to bite us, and that turnover interception off Shrek's hands turns into a field goal for UMass. And after that, we just take over the game. I've got Bo for 2 touchdowns, Campbell for 1, and then a 34 and a 48-yard field goal from Clark. I'm going to say Bo does not get 154. I think we run our Oregon offense in the fourth quarter like we've been able to do the last couple of games. And I think Western Michigan, we get Bo in the low hundreds, then Potts, Campbell, Taylor is apparently seeing the field again, kind of picks up the rest. But I don't think Bo gets to 150 unless he breaks one.
Good. Tim, I'm going by points here. So, Tim, I save Conrad for the last because he's still kind of hanging around that fringe. The Don may still have a chance to get back into this. So, Tim, I'm going the point ladder. You're next, Tim.
Well, I just want to point out, you know what? I have not had a drink during football since the Stony Brook game, right? Because I've given up alcohol because it seems to work. I'm also tanking my Bruwpeg because once again I'm picking 24-21 because it's worked whenever I pick them 24-21. So I have to then figure out how is this going to be 24-21 game. I looked at last year's game and figured, maybe UB gets off to a slow start again. 14-0 UMass at halftime. Colby Way gets a quick strip sack in the third quarter. Redden returns that for a touchdown. The defense starts to hold it together and hold up. Oliver cranks out 2 long runs, and UMass ties the game late on a freak pass before Clark nails it in overtime with a 35-yard field goal.
Good. Conrad, the Don, the man who still has a chance. I sure as hell do not with 9 points.
Wait, we got to give Tim. Did you say Oliver would get the record?
Thank you, Conrad.
Yeah, Oliver's going to break the record.
Wow, that's a yes.
In a tight game, Oliver breaks the record. I call it a tight game. So there it is.
And Matt completely dissing you, going pass and no. Good for you. Way to go, Tim. Way to be a UB fan. So Matt, jeez. Conrad.
Okay. So my thought process, I'm going to answer first, yes, Bo's going to get the record. I think, senior guy, the guy you rode for 5,000 carries when he was a sophomore, you're going to give him the record at home before they go to Kent State. So we're going to see a steady dose of Bo in that first half. We're going to try to give him that 150 before the end of the half. As a result, we're going to get 2 touchdowns. Like I said, I agree with BC. First drive, heavy dose of Bo. We get in there. We get in the end zone. Of course, we're going to get Campbell with the fantasy football touchdown snipe at the end. Campbell for 7-0. I think we're going to get down the field again, chasing Bo, and Bo's going to get him for the end zone, 14-0. Blanchflower was going to get into the end zone the first half, 14-7. Very quick first half. I think after all that, Bo, we're just going to get that record by about the half or early in the third quarter. Buffalo's really going to be able to open it up on tired UMass defense. I think Alex Newt's 2 catches for 9 yards and bogeying the ball all for Tab's not to be happy. So I see him getting 3 touchdowns in the second half. I think Campbell, like I said, he's going to get his touchdown. I think a defensive touchdown is in order because I love it when you have a score in all 3 facets of the game. Patrick Clark's going to give us 2 field goals. I'm putting up, what is that? I'm putting up 7 in the first, 7 in the second, 21 in the third, and then we're going to ease it out in the Oregon offense with 13. So that's going to give us 48-7. 48-7 Buffalo over UMass. Blanchflower killing our shutout streak.
Thank you for being descriptive. Mr. Vanilla last week, who couldn't decide on anything last week. Mr. Sweden, Switzerland over there. This week, I like the determination. Way to go.
I was very, the last 2 weeks, I think I had, what did I have last week? 31, and it was 33. And 2 weeks ago, I think both weeks I was rooting for us not to score a field goal so I could be closer in Bruwpeg and, first we pick that field goal.
Well, hey, quick question before we kind of shift gears and go to our shout-outs. Have anybody heard anything about Blake Bean? Is he playing? Is he? Anybody hear anything?
Today. I saw something today. I can't remember where now, but it said Bean and the new guy who had a good game against Ohio State. Those 2 guys. I think I saw they were probable. I can't remember if they practiced or not. They must have. They were probable. It said it was a knee tweak.
Okay.
Yeah, normally I do my injury reports on Monday and depth charts on Tuesday, but I've been trying to take it easy this week since my kids are on vacation. But tomorrow morning on Bull Run, I'll have it, one or the other or both up, though, so we'll have some clarity. But what I've learned with Quinn is you never know. You never know until game time. Then the Buffalo News will tweet out, "This is what Jeff Quinn just told us," and then you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, McKissick had Bean and Gilbo as questionable.
It was the Rock.
Yeah, so it's going to be Stockman and Skinner next to Redden and Khalil Mack.
Tim, did you just tell me, and for the world to hear, that you're saying that your kids are more important than UB football?
No, my kids are on vacation, which means my wife is home with them all the time. Now, my wife's happiness is more important than UB football.
Great answer. Okay. So we've done a Q&A with UMass. We've done a recap of a great victory, 33-0 victory. We've gone around the MAC, took a look at what's going on. I think we all agree that UB is going to win this game this weekend. Again, I love the Bruwpeg. I love the Consites, and I love Conrad painting that picture. I felt like I was actually watching that game. Thank you, Conrad. And last but not least, we're going to start off with Tim. So, Tim, what's on your mind, and what would you like to end your segment of the show with?
I'm just going to throw a shout-out at the men's soccer team for knocking off Hartwick today. Hartwick, in case you didn't know, just ended Akron's nation longest winning streak, I think, or Mac's longest winning streak, something like that. But Akron's kind of a soccer powerhouse, and Hartwick took him behind the woodshed, and UB just beat Hartwick today. So Stu Riddle is starting to build some momentum with that program, starting to get some big wins. I personally don't care for soccer, but from what I understand, it's rather popular, so I'd like to see UB do well at it.
It's pretty popular across the pond. It's starting to build in America. Next, we'll go to Conrad. Conrad, what do you got on your mind?
I got 3 shout-outs. The first shout-out is going to be to UB Bull Run commenters, because for the first time in a while, I wasn't able to watch a game. I was working. I was able to just check up on the mobile app, and I saw the score. I saw a lot of activity. A lot of people saying the athletes were making up for bad coaching, which is something we say a lot. So I'm glad to hear people are watching and seeing what I'm seeing, and it felt great. Second shout out is going to be the personal fouls by our defense. I think one of the turning points of Western Michigan seemed to be Khalil Mack face masking their quarterback. After that, he was awful. So, I'm, of the Mighty Ducks, 2 minutes well worth it theory. So get in there, rough them up and, make them think about that the rest of the game. I love that. And then my final shout out is to 10/12/2006. Never forget the freak October snowstorm, which is part of the reason why I'm out in California, because I was a senior and I said, I think I'll apply to the South or the West after this snowstorm in the middle of October. So let's never forget that day that kept me away from UB football.
Oh yeah, so it was really hard that you actually didn't have school for a while and you got to hang out and drink beer and do nothing. So yeah, you're right, terrible, absolutely
UB,
terrible.
This is UB you're talking about. I don't think I missed a class, and we had a practice in the snowstorm, and then we had a game on Sunday over a Bills game in front of about 12 people. We don't cancel stuff at Buffalo, so it was not fun.
Gotcha. And again, would love to welcome Matt. Matt, thanks for joining in. So less of me is always a great thing. So more of you is better. Tell me, what are you thinking about? It doesn't have to be about UB football. It can be about anything. So
don't worry.
What's on your mind?
I got two. I got one, which I discovered today happily. If you register for the Turkey Trot, you get 2 free tickets to the Bowling Green game at the Ralph, which more people should know about that. I understand why UB isn't pushing it because they want people to buy tickets through UB. But I think that's a great idea by Danny White. It's the next day. People are going to run their race. They're going to drink. And they're not going to have anything to do on Friday because shopping is just not worth it anymore. Come to the Ralph. Come for free. You get, the best tradition in Buffalo, the Turkey Trot, and two tickets. I think it's a great way to build the fan base and try to get more of those casual fans that maybe aren't coming for Randy Hauser or Big Bad Voodoo Daddy or something like that. My other shout out on the UMass week is to UMass hockey. Hockey is something we talk about from time to time in the UB fan base, and should we get it, is it worth it? UMass hockey is playing 2 games against Michigan State this weekend as part of the hastily thrown together Big Ten Hockey East Challenge. Both teams finished in the bottom 2 of their conference last year, but I dislike UMass hockey so much. I'm setting UMass hockey +3 versus UMass football total points this weekend as a Vegas betting line. Bonus Bruwpeg. I'm taking UMass hockey +3 goals over UMass football points versus Buffalo.
Mac, well, welcome again. Thanks for coming on. I'm looking forward to seeing you here every week. So good. Again, this is the last week of our Cupcake Weeks. This is the last week where I think we can sit here and everyone doing Bruwpeg or this panel can say, hey, UB is going to win this game, because it gets interesting after this and it gets pretty fun, and we're going to find out a lot about this team in the next after this UMass week. Again, there's no reason to worry about UMass. We're going to kick their butt. Don't worry about it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. So again, this has been another episode of Last Bowl In, week 7 here, UMass. We're halfway through the season. For Conrad, say goodnight.
Good night, everyone.
Tim, say goodnight.
See ya.
Matt.
Have a good night, everybody.
And everybody, thanks a lot for watching Last Bowl In. Have a great week, and let's go beat UMass. Good night, everybody.